So it is time for our special feature, and every week I share some kind of a special feature that's not a question and it's not an answer. It is a theme that keeps popping up in my world over the course of the week. And Danielle, are you still with me? Are you still on this live? Because Danielle is one of the people who was talking about this with me. In fact, she kicked it off and then it just kept appearing over and over again. And I want to bring up this amazing resource. What I'd like to share with you today is some thoughts about the Myers-Briggs indicators, the Myers-Briggs type indicators, and designing a business. Oh, great, Danielle, you're still here. Hey, Deborah. Oh my gosh, we just have a room full of accountants. I'm loving it. We're so geeked out. It just keeps coming up. So the Myers-Briggs type indicator is like a personality test or a personality inventory that classifies people into, there are 4 variables and 4 categories. So there are 16 potential personality types as part of this framework. And I'm curious who here on the live call, and even if you're watching after the fact, weigh in. I'm curious about who knows about the Myers-Briggs, who knows, weigh in if you know what yours is. I'm going to say right here, I'm INTJ. And some inventories call that the architect, and some inventories call that the mastermind. If you know what your letters are, but you don't know what the words are that go with it, that's okay. I'll tell you, because I've got a resource right here, plus I know half of them in my head. It seems like I've been doing a lot of work lately on who people are and helping people to design businesses that are authentic to the way to who they are. And I'm talking about strategies and tactics. You know, I'm not talking about like closing your eyes and meditating and asking you what kind of business you feel. Because I'm an INTJ and I would never do that. Maybe somebody else would. Maybe an ENFP would ask you to close your eyes and ask you to envision your business and feel the business. But I would never do that. Oh my gosh, Vanessa, you're an INTJ? Hey! So I'll share with you briefly a couple of thoughts about each of these 4 variables. And after that, we'll probably close it out. The first variable is introverted versus extroverted. And for purposes of Myers-Briggs, the point isn't to mean like introverts are shy and wallflowers and afraid of people and extroverts are the life of the party. For purposes of Myers-Briggs, introverts means that I say we because I'm an introvert. Introverts prefer, in general, written communication over verbal. And if we do verbal communications, like if we're cool with that, then we just need some quiet time, alone time to decompress afterwards. Extroverts typically prefer, the opposite. They typically prefer verbal over written, more or less. It doesn't mean that all extroverts are illiterate. It means that extroverts typically are more effective and comfortable in verbal communications, somewhat more than written. And the other useful characteristic that I find useful here in the context of business is that extroverts get their energy refilled by others, and they're very sensitive to other people's energies. And introverts rather self-generate. Each has pros and cons. And so a lot of people were asking me recently in a business, this is my Myers-Briggs, how should I run my business? And what I have found is that first variable is particularly useful in areas of communicating. So if you're considering where you'll be most effective in marketing, for example, decide for yourself of your portfolio of written and verbal communications and use your Myers-Briggs. And remember, it's not just a variable. There's a degree to which you are that variable. And you can go to 16personalities.com and take the quiz or the test or whatever and get not only your letters, but the percent you are for each letter. So if you're like 51%, you're just as much introvert as extrovert. But if you're way over on one side or the other, you can actually structure your marketing tactics accordingly. In addition, consider your internal operations. If you're introverted, you're going to want to use some kind of a written workflow tool. If you're extroverted, you may be interested in having daily meetings with your team or weekly meetings with your team. It's a separate conversation of how not to make meetings onerous. But anyhow, those are two examples of ways that you can use this information to design your business. And if you've been in business for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 2 years, it doesn't matter. You can implement something new. It's going to feel good because you're going to be giving up a lot of pain and frustration and sliding into something that really feels warm to you, really feels like warm waters. The second is N versus S. That's intuitive for the N, just because the I for intuitive that was already taken, introvert. Somebody's throwing out there a lot of emoticons. Great. Mwah. So intuitive versus sensing. So let me get to this thing. Hang on. This explains it best. The intuitive individuals, more imaginative, open-minded, curious, novelty over stability, hidden meanings, future possibilities. I love this in terms of like deploying a team. Intuitive, that's where you're going to find your CFOs who love to look to the future and do strategic planning and help to create the future and do cash flow forecasting. Your observant, your S, your sensing or observant individuals, they're more practical, pragmatic, and down to earth. That, to me, at the more advanced levels, let's say, or the higher impact levels of my field, accounting, that's where I would put your really strong controller. Right? Controllers are more interested in general on what's so and what has been. And CFOs, the way that I define CFOs, are much more future facing. Somebody in the wrong seat can cause a lot of things to go haywire. So we are actually at the bottom of the hour, and I would love to pick up this discussion in another episode of Ask a CFO. This has really been, this has been a lot of fun to explore, and there's so much more there. A practical application of a very intangible and personal framework. That's magic to me.